Welcome to our Free Speech Zone, where we do a deep dive into trauma and reintegration. This is Combat Citizen. Welcome back to the Combat Citizen Trauma and Reintegration Podcast. I'm your host, Ryan Stanton, and as always, we go through your trauma and reintegration. So, thank you for your likes, subscribes, and your shares. And I just ask that you do more of that so we can get the word out. Also, I just wanted to get a shout out to the sponsor of this podcast, Battle Box, your hard carrying case for your essential oils and anything else that you want to protect. You can go on to battlebox.co or you can email at yourbattlebox@gmail.com. So, thank you for watching, and we have a guest here today. His name's J R, and I just want to introduce him. He is you were in Navy?
I was a Navy Corpsman, yes, sir.
Okay, cool. So the way the podcast works, I'm just going to ask you a couple questions about your Navy career, how you were before your Navy career, and then anything after, reintegration, that kind of stuff. So I guess we're going to put it over to you, JR, and just introduce yourself, and then we'll go from there.
Yeah, sure. So hi, everyone. My name is JR. I'm a Navy vet. So I joined back in 2004, I think. Initially joined the Navy because, like all males, right? They want to be a SEAL. So I ended up joining the Navy. Did 5 years, like I said. Ended up being a corpsman, believe it or not, and ended up being with the Marines for about 4 out of my 5 years. All of that time spent in 29 Palms. So the best of times, out, Lake Bandini or whatnot. But yeah, essentially, I mean, before the military, I graduated high school early. I knew from a very young age that I wanted, to serve my country and, follow my father's footsteps. My dad also joined the military. So I knew from a very, I was a little kid and, used to run around with my dad's, cover. And I pretty much knew from then I was going to join And I should have listened to my dad, actually, believe it or not. I should have gone to college straight out of high school, but no, I had it set. I was, I want to go in, I was gung-ho and I wanted, just to get out and explore. So I ended up graduating high school at 16. I ended up going to regular school throughout the day and then taking 2 classes in the evening, almost every other day, right? And so I ended up graduating a whole year early from school. So I couldn't join until I turned 17. So I went to school for about a semester. I ended up getting a job at Fort Bliss, at the Fort Bliss Gun and Rod, shop. And so, just kind of helping out, cleaning guns for, 16 years old, cleaning guns and stuff. So that was pretty fun. As soon as I turned 17, on my 17th birthday, we went to the recruiter's office, told my mom I was going to leave. She didn't want to sign, but kind of, walked her into it. I was like, here, sign a paper. And I think about 3 days later, I was gone, went to boot camp.
Wow.
So that was probably the craziest things I've done, right? And so, yeah, I joined the Navy. I went in because I wanted to be a SEAL, right? I ended up not going through that, just things didn't happen for me, right? And so I was like, whoa, what's the next craziest thing I can do, right? And they're like, oh, you can go with the Marines, you can see combat, yada, yada, yada. I was like, okay, cool, yeah, sign me up for that. Lo and behold, I used to pass out at the sight of blood, man. Believe it or not. Anytime when I was a kid, I used to get my blood drawn, I would pass out right there and then. So I was like, oh man, is this the best choice I ever made in my life? So I was like, what did I get into? And I struggled a lot, right? Medicine's one of those things where you really have to know your stuff, and you really got to be prepared. And you got to have the stomach and the guts for it, right? And
Sure.
so I just pushed myself through, man, to be honest with you. Ended up, graduating A school. That's what they call it in the Navy, which is like your MOS. Got done with that. And then they sent me to my first duty station was here in Oak Harbor, Washington, over at the hospital there. And, I was there for about 2 months before they pulled my orders from there. And they're like, hey, you know what? You're going to field med school. Field med school is, kind of the in-doc training to go with the Marines, and they pretty much teach you how to walk, talk, and act like a Marine, but with extra medicine training on the side, right? And so teach you how to march and all that good stuff. So yeah, I ended up doing that. Got done with that, and then I think I did my rounds with quite a few Marine Corps, some of the units out in 29 Palms. I started with the LAR, ended up going to tanks, ended up going with artillery. Yeah, I pretty much got to experience a lot of areas within, the core side of things. So I did that, did 2 tours, saw my fair share of stuff, definitely life-changing experiences, that's for sure. Being a medic is probably it's a blessing and a curse at the same time. You're with the Marines, and your first job is to be, I was a Marine first. I don't care what people say, you're an extra gun, right, on your squad, right? Unless, something happens, and then that's when your second skill, which, was my medicine training. Yeah, I mean, my first casualty was a guy, he hit an IED, and, I blacked out, man, to be honest with you. That was my craziest thing. And I can't recall the incident. I can't recall the face. I can't pull any of that. It's just, I blacked out. I still did my job, surprisingly, but I have no recollection of it. I struggle with that. I try to sit there and remember things, and, try to process the thoughts and stuff. And it
doesn't come.
It doesn't come. It doesn't come at all. I had other experiences after that, but I think my first one stuck with me the most. and the reason I think it stuck with me is because I can't remember anything out of it. So I'm always trying to put myself in that situation all over again and try to remember. But for the life of me, I just can't remember.
Wow.
Yeah, I had it rough in the military, and it wasn't because the military is hard. I think the military is probably one of the easiest things I ever did in my life. And I say that because, I'm a military brat, right? So I saw how my dad dealt with it. I saw him, not be home for extended periods of times. And the times that he was home, he wasn't really home. You know what I mean? Because he was always prepping for that next deployment or prepping for the next thing to come. So I kind of knew what the expectations were going in, right? And so I had no issues in the military, man. The hurry up and wait. I mean, the pay sucks, right? The pay is the most horrible thing. I mean, if they paid me for every time I had to hurry up and wait, I think we'd all be making, 6-figure salary.
You don't be rich.
You know what I mean? But yeah, I had no issues, man. I adapted really quick. I loved my time in. I wish I could have, stayed in and I would have most definitely done my 20, if not more. My dad did about 31 or 32 years. I definitely could have stayed in a long time. And but yeah, it didn't turn out that way for me, right? Typical, military service member, enlisted guy, join, get married young, just a bunch of stupid crap, man, to be honest with you. A lot of issues, right? I got married at 18 because I thought she was pregnant. Well, I didn't think she was pregnant. She was pregnant. Long story short, after I got out the military, I ended up having to have a DNA test, so that child did not end up being my biological son. But I did end up having a daughter with her, so now I'm stuck with her, dealing with her because of my daughter. But yeah, she just ruined my life in the military, right? It's horrible what a military civilian spouse can do to an enlisted service member. There's just the amount of power they can have over you, right? I mean, you do something, they go to your chain of command really quickly. She would claim that I was abusing her during times that I was out in the field with my unit. She would drive on base, let the what do they call them, MPs at the gate. He's like, oh, my husband choked me out, and here they come like 6 MPs, out in the range in 29 Palms, looking for me, like, hey, is Doc Avalos out here? They're like, yeah, we got a report that you choked your wife out last night. I'm like, last night? We had a fire exercise last night. I don't know what you're talking about.
Oh, geez.
You know what I mean?
I wasn't anywhere near my wife.
Yeah, it was horrible, man. It was just horrible. Let's see, worst experience in the military. I think my worst experiences besides combat was just her making my life hard. As far as having to deal with chain of command, right? I ended up standing tall before a 2-star general because of her. She ended up burning base housing down, had drugs on base. So it got to the point where like my chain of command was very supportive of me, right? And they understood my situation, and what they, essentially what they ended up doing was they put a military protective order on me. They're like, hey, Doc, you know what? Your relationship's going through crap. Let's go ahead and take you out of that situation. We'll put you in the barracks. So I was still getting full BAH because of my son, right? And so they put me in the barracks. I didn't have to, get my BH taken away or anything like that. Put me in the barracks. They're like, hey, you know what? We don't want you near her. Do what you got to do. Deal with your stuff. Go to courts, whatever. Yeah, and yeah, it was just the most horrible experience with her. I didn't get that 18 or 29% though Camaro though, so that's a good thing.
Yeah.
Interest rates. They weren't handing those out when I enlisted. So yeah, that was probably by far the worst thing. So I had put in. So this was almost towards the end of my. I think I had about a year left before I was wanting to reenlist. That ended up not being the case. I ended up going through a lot of medical stuff, knee, backs, just the whole gambit, right? And they're like, you know what, you're not really much fit for duty. I ended up compressing my discs, torn ACLs.
Oh.
Yeah, it's just the whole thing, right? I had initially I had put in paperwork to extend because my unit was about to deploy again, and we had just got back from Iraq. And we had about 6 months downtime, and we were already starting to prep to go this time to Afghanistan, or go back to Afghanistan, right? And I was like, you know what, I don't want to let my boys down, I was like, because everyone's like, hey, Doc, we need you on this deployment, man. So I was like, okay, cool, like, you know what, let me put my paperwork in. So I put my paperwork in, and that's when I got the whole med board process and everything. And they're like, yeah, can't do it, man.
Med board process sucks.
I skated, man. I enjoyed my med board process. I mean, my unit deployed. I ended up going to a kind of like another echelon unit, non-deployable unit, pretty much. So they ended up moving me over to tanks. And I mean, I hardly ever showed up for muster. I just stayed in my barracks room the whole time. Like the last 6 months, I didn't do nothing. Yeah, it was probably like a vacation almost.
So yeah, there's two processes to like the med board. There's the soldier's not doing anything now, and there's the actual paperwork that's being put in for the med board. I was that guy because I was a medical readiness NCO, and I was that guy that had to put in the paperwork for these guys.
Right.
So
yeah, so I didn't have, so I don't know if it's because I already had the training or on the medical side of things. So I think that kind of expedited the process for me, right? It was a lot of my chief, he'd reach out to me, the guy that was in charge of doing the readiness stuff, paperwork for the med boards, and he'd be like, hey, I'm missing a doc, come in and sign it or whatever. I'd be like, okay, yeah, sure. I walked on base, right, literally from point A to point B, because 29 Palms is pretty small. It's pretty small station there. So I was like, yeah, sure, I'll be there in an hour. I was like, okay. So I just walk over there and, hey, what do you need, Chief? Missing a signature here, initials here, blah, blah, blah. Okay. Do it. Anything else, Chief? Nope. All right. See you later. Yeah. Walking back to my barracks. But yeah, I was pretty adamant. I learned from, all the old heads, and I call them old heads, from the people who were getting out or going through the process when I was helping them. Hey, Doc, I need a copy of my medical record for my VA claims or blah, blah, blah. Can you help me out? So I learned throughout the process, right? And they're like, hey, so I documented everything, right? And I think that's one of the things that saves my ass, to be honest with you, is that, yeah, it just, I was lucky because I knew the ins and outs as far as, oh, your back hurts. Oh, let's document it, because it's all about documentation,
right.
especially with the VA. And so even now that I'm out, I still have a lot of buddies that are still in, and I know people, that are going in, right? So I was going to Pacific Lutheran University here in Tacoma, Washington. And, I had guys that, were in the OCS or the ROTC program. And I'd be like, hey, man, this is what you need to do when you first get in. Sign up all your things, document everything. Documentation is key, because when you get out, if you don't have that, man, you're going to be screwed. They're like, oh yeah, for sure. Yeah, no, thanks. And as a matter of fact, I had a buddy of mine hit me up on LinkedIn yesterday, and they're like, hey man, do you remember such and such time when we were in Sinjar, Iraq, when I broke my leg? And I was like, yeah, we freaking flew you out. And he was like, yeah, apparently they don't have paperwork on that. I'm like, what? I was like, you gotta be kidding me. I was like, yeah. So I tell everybody, man, document, keep copies of whatever you can, because that's gonna come back in the end to get you, believe it or not.
Oh yeah, yeah, by far. I mean, I was always telling my guys, yeah, okay, so you get paperwork, you're giving it to me, but you need to take copies too, and you need,
Oh yeah, definitely. I
you
mean,
have
because
copies of copies, pretty much.
yeah, yeah, I'd be surprised how many times the VA loses your stuff.
Yeah, no, I had people. I mean, I had people that I was sending shit all the time, and
Yeah,
I still get the VA be like, so I don't have this paperwork. I'm like, let me see, let me check my emails. I sent it to you 2 weeks ago.
yeah, no, yeah,
We're
definitely.
ready to go.
Everything time stamped, all proof of facts, everything, the whole 9 yards, right? But
Yeah.
yeah, other than that, I mean, my time in the military is probably one of the best things, and I think my hardest trauma or thing about reintegrating back into the civilian world was sense of purpose. To be honest with you, finding jobs was not really that difficult. I mean, I I got lazy. Let's be honest. I got really lazy once I got out of the military. I think all I did for like the first year was sleep. It's amazing how much quality sleep I got. Right?
Yeah, I'm
So
catching up on my sleep, man. That's cool.
yeah, most definitely, most definitely. So yeah, I think for that first year after I got out, I didn't do anything, man. I didn't have a job. I didn't go to school. I just did my own thing, right? I mean, started trying to like get in contact with my friends, hanging out with my buddies. I did drink a lot, believe it or not, to the point where I had alcohol poisoning. That was on my first day home. I think I spent like $3,000 at the bar. I bought all my buddies drinks. I didn't let anybody. I was just happy to be out, right? Happy to be divorced. Just happy to be home, right, with my
Yeah.
friends. And that's when shit started getting downhill as far as like the PTSD stuff and not being able to sleep and having nightmares and stuff. Because when you're in the military, it's even when you're in the rear, it's still kind of high tempo, right? So you still got that adrenaline kind of going through you. Um, yeah, once I got out, I was like, oh man, what do I do with my time? Like, I have no sense of purpose, no sense of drive, like no one telling me where to be or what to do. And it's just like kind of like spiral downwards a little bit, right? And suffered with quite, some depression, suicidal shit, like a lot of vets go through. Contemplated killing myself quite a few times. I still deal with that, right? And I think most vets, it's something that I,
I have in the
I
back
hate
of
to use.
my mind,
I hate to use the word normal, but uh, it's almost to that point. You know what I mean? Where it's like
yeah.
that whole 22 vet thing, right, going on, and I mean it's just sad, man. It's sad, and I think what keeps me driving forward is luckily it's my children for me. I don't want them to be without a father, but that's one of the biggest issues that I deal with and that I contemplate all the time, right? I mean, heavily medicated. I go on and off meds all the time, man. I think VA is one of the, oh, you're sick, here's a pill for this. Oh, you got this, here's a pill to counteract that. It's like, I kid you not, man. I can show you my cabinet right now, and it's just I have literally my left side kitchen cabinet from
Uh,
top is three shelves from top to bottom full of medicine.
oh
Um,
God.
Full of pills, full of whatever. Uh, some good pills, some bad pills. Yeah.
Yeah. They are once in a while on this show, we talk about going back to the word normalize. We talk about how much better things might actually be if the military would start normalizing. Hey, this is what you're going to feel like when you get back into the civilian world. Here's the things you need to be thinking about. You can't just go and do nothing. You need to have a strategy. Let's start getting some strategists talking with you. And I know not everybody is going to want to do that, but do you think that there is an inroad to that in the near future for the military?
Good question. Yeah.
So, at least in my time when I got out, right? I got out in 2010. Um, my getting out experience was very like, hey, peace out, man. have fun, like take care.
Mm.
There is nothing about these are the benefits for you. I think the only person who actually helped me was the DAV veteran representative when I filled out my paperwork, right? And I think that was it. Even after the med board process, they're like, "Yeah, peace out, dude." I didn't get any kind of purpose or kind of like pointers or tips or anything like that, man. And to be honest with you, I think now the VA and the military's in a little bit of a better position because they've been under a lot of scrutiny, right? They've kind of, a lot of us vets are starting to speak up, and it's not just during our time. I mean, even my father experienced it. I see my father go through it, right? Which is part of the reason why, like I said, I've been acclimated to the military since I was a kid. I've seen what my dad dealt with. I've seen what the military did to him, so I kind of understood. And like I said, I had those expectations. But to someone who is new to the military or who may not have had any background, family members in the military, it's hard for them. I would say, especially if they don't have somebody who is close to them to kind of like show them the ropes, so to speak, right? And so I think now a lot of vets are starting to speak up for themselves, and not only for themselves, but we're starting to speak up for others. We're starting to build that support network, because before I noticed that during my time, I can't remember the last time my dad spoke to one of his buddies from back in the day. You know what I mean? Yeah, he might have run into one at the store or something like that, but I think now I actually keep in touch with most of my good buddies that we've been through some shit with, right? And so we kind of like buddy check you, hey man, how you doing, or like, hey, where you at in life, those kind of things. But I think for the most part, the VA is starting to realize that, hey, oh shit, these guys are starting to, it's bad, right? It shouldn't be like this. This is not the new normal, right? And so I think the military, prime example, like, and it's not just about, vets getting out, but like the whole crap that's going on at Fort Hood, right? A lot of this stuff is starting to come into public. And this is nothing new, to be honest with you. Even when I was at 29 pounds, we had shit like that happen all the time. It's either rape incidences or people going AWOL or people killing each other out in the middle of nowhere in 29 Palms. I mean, it's not brought out to light like it is now, right? I mean, even back in my time, my phone was like the old very first iPhone, whatever. I mean, technology is making things a lot easier for people to get that word out, right? And it's kind of like benefiting the vets now too. And it's funny that it's not funny. I mean, it's great that you bring out that subject, because I think it's a matter of time before it gets better, right? You have to hit this peak where things are just at this all-time low, right? Kind of like where everything's just shit for veterans, and until change comes, right? And something starts happening, and it's just one of those things where, like, I'm glad that it's going that way.
Yeah, I mean, I've noticed, like, with the vets that I've been talking to on this podcast, there's kind of a mix, but for the most part, anybody that gets out of the military is primary, like, you know what, great, I'm done. It's fun, woohoo, all that, right. But their mentality has always, from what I understand, has been, okay, well, I'm getting out of the military. I don't want to converse with anybody. And I want to, live my life now, but what I'm seeing too is that a lot of the conversations that are not happening are because a lot, some of the soldiers are not like, I don't want to talk to anybody. It's something I want to get out. And I don't know, not everybody's command's the same, but I'm sure there's probably some where they're like, well, we want to try to give you some kind of advice and whatnot, but there's no advice of this is how it's going to be after you're out of the military. Like one of the guys that came on the podcast was actually saying that when he got out, he had actually asked, so what's my next steps? And they're like, well, your next steps are basically just walk out that gate and you're done. And he's like,
no, definitely. And I think is very accurate. And so, believe it or not, so that when I was at, we were talking earlier about the IVMF program, right, at Syracuse University. there's so many programs out for veterans, to be honest with you, man. And it's sad that, these installations, or your transition when you're getting out, you're going through like, for us, they call it TAPS, I think, or TAPS program, for your, like, when you're getting out, right? You're checking out of your command or whatnot.
Yeah.
So like you ask, what are the last steps, right? And so I think now they're starting to implement some of these programs, or bring some of these programs to attention to these vets, because they're seeing the good out of it, right? For example, I think one of the programs that I've come across is like that Heroes program, where, like, if you have like 6 months left before you get out, if your command allows it, they'll let you kind of like intern for your last 6 months.
Oh yeah, yeah.
And I think one of those things is great, right? And I think a lot of these companies are starting to realize that value, and setting relationships with the military to kind of help these vets transition. And it's true, because, like I said, man, you get out, you as a service member on your last day, you're asking, hey, what do I do next? It's kind of sad and pathetic, to be honest with you, right? The fact that we're almost relying on them to kind of tell us what to do next, because we're so conditioned to that, right? We're so conditioned every single day. Hey, 0600 mustard, or hey, be here at this, hey, this, that, we're so conditioned to that, right? And we have to change our mindsets, and kind of take advantage of our time in the military to prepare yourself for when you do decide to get out. I think that's one of the biggest things that us as veterans, we have to recognize, and we have to start understanding. And I see it this way, right? So, for example, which veteran, when they transition or exit or get out of the military, become more successful? Officers do. Why? Because they went to college first. They have that, college experience already. They went through that, right? So they have kind of like that. Where in college you go through these programs and they teach you about this, or you learn about this opportunities, and networking and stuff like that, right? That's why officers have it so easy, man. You're enlisted and you're like, oh crap, unless you went to school and had paid, what's that program that pays for your school while you're active duty without using your GI Bill?
God, what is it? Yeah, I don't know what that one is.
You know what I'm talking about, though, right? Like,
Yeah,
while
yeah.
you're enlisted, they pay for your schooling, right? I mean, if you're able to, if you got time to do it or whatnot, great for you, right? And then so it's like, I tell a lot of people, I'm like, if you're going enlisted, hey, be prepared for the suck, and go to school, take advantage of it, before using your GI Bill. I've used up all my GI Bill going to crazy schools and not knowing what the hell I wanted to do, and so I'm out of GI Bill benefits, and yeah, it sucks.
Yeah.
It's horrible.
I understand. I'm right now, I'm using the GI Bill, and I looked at how much longer I have, and it's so funny because my wife and I are talking about it, and I'm like, so I'm not sure if I have enough to finish my degree. So hopefully I do, but so it's because I've already used it for my undergrad, and then I'm doing a master's. So, but
yeah, it's one of those things where, like, I'm like, luckily, I had a buddy of mine who reached out to me and like, hey man, how you doing? I was like, hey, I'm not, well, before I got this job where I'm working at now, I was like, hey, you know what? I'm not doing so good. I had to drop out of school. My mind wasn't right. I wasn't able to focus. I was struggling. I still struggle with school, man. My thought process, it's just completely different. Like I mentioned at the beginning of the show, I graduated high school early. I felt like I was smart, and like now I feel like, not that I'm stupid or anything. I feel like I process a lot of things a lot more differently than I did before, right?
well,
And it's kind of,
it's
go ahead.
your mindset's different. Really, I
Yeah,
mean,
the military kind of like rewires your brain, to be honest with you. Like you become not self-dependent, you're more not self-reliant, you're more self-dependent, right? And so you're kind of like having to rely on other people. And it's just now my brain, trauma kind of alters your brain, right? And so
yeah.
there's been science studies done on that. So it's kind of like, for me, it's, I believe it or not, it's not that I'm ashamed or anything, but I have to request accommodations. I'm like, hey, I need extra time, I need an extra hour to take this test, because by the time I'm done reading this question, I'm like, holy crap, like I'm just overwhelmed. I start sweating, I get anxious.
I need to
It's
understand
horrible, man. Yeah, it's horrible, man. And it's like, man, I used to not struggle with this before. I'm like, before, I was I think my lowest grade in high school was like a C minus or something like that. I never had bad grades. I did really well in school. And now I'm like, holy crap, man. I was like, yeah. So I dropped out of school, man. I just dropped out of college and I was really struggling, right? So I mean, I got my associates. I got my associates in nursing. That's another story, right? I still wanted to do medicine after I got out, or at least I thought I did, until I was driving over the Snoqualmie Pass here in Washington, and ended up being a really bad car accident where this person was like halfway ejected out of their vehicle, right? So I once again blacked out, and I had never blacked out until that day. And and I was going into nursing and kind of like, almost done with my nursing degree. I'm like, yeah, I can't do this. I don't want to put myself in this situation again, or have to see other people die anymore. And I was like, hey, what can I do that's a complete 180 from the medicine field, like treating patients? Oh, technology. Yeah, let's get into computer science and become a developer or coder. Like, you're very siloed, right? You're just a one person. They tell you what to do, you do it, and that's it, right? And so yeah, I ended up going to school for that. I did really well. I did okay. Until I started having, homework issues, assignment issues. It's just kind of like struggling, right? So I ended up dropping out of that. And then I had a buddy of mine who started working for Accenture, the company that I work for now. And they're like, hey, man, these guys are, they got this veteran opportunity apprenticeship where they kind of like, they bring you on. It's like OJT, on the job training, paid and everything. And, they're like, you want to give it a shot? I was like, sure, yeah, I'll apply, whatever. My background, typical military thing, right? You get out, you either follow your MOS or your job, what you used to do, kind of stick to that, or law enforcement or security, right? I did security for a while, and I actually got into K9 security for a while, and I did that for a little bit, and until my buddy was like, hey man, try this out. And so I've been with the company that I'm with now for about a year. They've treated me really well, man, to be honest with you. That's probably like you had found my that article they wrote about me, right? And so yeah, my transition, man, wasn't the worst, and it wasn't the greatest. I struggled along the way, but I think what helped me the most was that drive that I had to constantly seek information, constantly like bug people, like, hey, how'd you do this, or hey, how do you do that, or like another example, we were talking about the GI Bill, that I've used all my GI Bill up, and like I just mentioned, I just registered back for school, right, to start in January. A buddy of mine reached out to me. He was like, hey man, have you heard about the Roger STEM scholarship? And it's through the VA. And they're like, yeah, they'll pay up to 9 months, for you to go to school, you apply before, it's one of those user lose type benefits, where like they have budgeted a certain amount of money for people who apply to it. And they're like, yeah, apply for it. I was like, okay, sure. Yeah, I applied for it. I got a response back less than 30 days. Like, yeah, approved. Cool. I was like, awesome. So that'll pay for 9 months of my school, right? And so that'd be good. But yeah, networking and reaching out to each other and helping each other out is probably one of the biggest things that we can do for one another right now.
Yeah, I found out that's pretty key. I mean, when I got out of the military, I didn't really know about any kind of programs. I mean, I knew about the GI Bill and whatnot, but I didn't know about any programs or any like groups, all organizations or whatever. And it was a buddy of mine, directed me to a couple places, and from there it was like, okay, well, it's good to know that there's these organizations out there that can help people, and also for schooling stuff too, because he's always like, dude, look at this, try this out, check this out. So
yeah, definitely. And that's one of the benefits that I enjoy about LinkedIn, believe it or not. It's not so much networking. I consider LinkedIn like the new Facebook, but for like business.
Yeah.
I found myself on LinkedIn a lot more. I've kind of transitioned away from Facebook. Right? I still have a Facebook for friends and family, but I've transitioned more to LinkedIn. I don't post as much, and the stuff that I do post is mostly geared towards vets. I'm always trying to get that word out, right? I'm like, hey, if you're a vet student, look into this, or hey, look into that. You know what I mean? I'm always trying to put that information out there, because in my experience in the past, and similar to yours, right? Nobody told us about anything.
Right.
they didn't, let us know, hey, this is what's available to you. Hey, here's what you can do. Like, oh, so for example, what are my next steps? Hey, this is what's available out there for you. Apply, pick your choosing. You know what I mean? They don't do that, right? And they're kind of like, hey, there's a door. Thank you for your time. Peace out. you know? Um,
Yeah.
and so, yeah, LinkedIn is probably one of those platforms where I'm constantly on, and I kind of like go on there, and if I see something I like, or I see something that's beneficial for another vet, I'll share it on my LinkedIn, and I'll tag someone if it's I feel it's more like aligned to their area or whatever.
Yeah.
And another thing too is like military experience doesn't necessarily always transition. I think that's one of the biggest issues we have. For
Yeah.
example, in my time, right, being a corpsman, you would think that I would at least have gotten like paramedics license almost, you know what I mean, or a PA or something like that. It doesn't always transition, man, and a lot of these people struggle, right? And so
Mhm.
I think one of the good things, I think the Air Force has like the Air Force College, right, and it's kind of like they can kind of do a little bit of their own thing, but it's not the greatest either. And like I said, man, it's just transitioning for me wasn't that it was difficult. It was just I was just lazy, to be honest
Mhm.
with you. Because if I applied myself, I mean, I can pretty much guarantee I can find my way into something. And I think, like I said, it's finding that niche that you're good at, right? That you enjoy and that you want to kind of explore or be in. I thought, my thoughts were wrong. When I got out, I was like, oh, I think I'm gonna follow the medical field. I'm like, no, that was completely wrong for me, to be honest with you. I needed something different. Had I stayed in that, I would have probably offed myself, to be honest with you. I enjoy what I'm doing now. I'm kind of like a people person. I'm a people person, right? I love helping people, man. I love communicating. I love, you know, being able to stand up for other people, so to speak, or share my experiences with others, so that way they don't have to go through what I went through, or kind of stuff like
Sure.
that.
Yeah, no, I mean, it seems like that is a good fit for you, because, being able to help others, it seems like something that you is a
Yeah,
better.
it's something that I enjoy.
Yeah,
It's something I enjoy. It's just something that's easy. That's kind of like what my role is now in my current job, right? I'm a more of like a mediator, so to speak. That's what the whole, we're talking about what Scrum is and stuff like that
sure.
is. So I'm not a technology person at all whatsoever. I know about code. I can code a little bit, like very elementary type coding. I'm not by far consider myself a professional or engineer by any means, but I'm able to understand, right? I'm able to the thought process behind it and stuff like that. And so I think that's what helps me a little bit with my job. So yeah, I mean, it is what it is, I guess.
So, I got a couple minutes left. I wanted to ask one last question. And it kind of relates to you wanting to help others out, and also your military experience. Is basically, what is, if you had to speak to somebody that's either currently in the military or out of trying to get into the military, what would be your piece of advice for them? Like, example, like something, knowing about what the military is going to be like, or on the other
I
end, if he's getting
I
out. Yeah.
I would say, well, there's two aspects to it, and I say that because um, I think if you're really considering joining the military, go to college first. Give college a try first. And I say this in the utmost respect. I understand, people just want to serve or do whatever. I want people to succeed. I want people to not struggle, right? I mean, granted, not everyone could be an officer. And I mean, I've had some really bad officers, right? That shouldn't have been officers. But go to college first. Give college a try first. And the reason I say this is because one, you're getting your degree out of the way. Two, we all know that, all enlisted people know officers have it made. They have their quality of life is a lot better in the military. Three, you'll be well equipped, well prepared, a lot better when you get out of the military if you are an officer. You already have a degree. Your degree is paid for. I mean, you go to 4 years of college, join a ROTC or go through OCS, whatever the case may be. The military, you do your 4-year commitment or 5-year commitment or whatever it is for officers, your degree is done. It's paid for. You have no debt, right? That's what I would tell people. That's what my father tried to tell me. I didn't listen to my father. If you do decide to go enlisted, be prepared. Do your due diligence. Talk to people. Reach out to vets. Communicate. Be like, get a buddy. Get a mentor. Get somebody who will help you through your time in the military, or if you need advice, or if you know what kind of job you want to do in the military, find someone who's done that job, so you can get their inputs or their aspects about their job. If you want to be a SEAL, talk to a SEAL. If you want to be a radio operator, talk to radio operators. If you want to be like an IT person, talk to IT persons who've done that job in the military.
Sure.
Because you can try to talk to me. I'll tell you about my general experience in the military, but knowing about the job, I think it's a lot better, right?
Right.
Anybody can be a grunt. To be honest with you, anybody can be a grunt.
Sure.
But getting into those specialized fields, I think, will prepare you a little bit better. Getting into IT in the military is one of the biggest things, I think. Secondly, get a clearance while you're in the military. Get your TS with Poly. Get your clearance, because when you get out, believe it or not, I think I was on LinkedIn the other day. A job will pay you $45,000 bonus just for having a clearance.
No, it's
okay.
That is money right there. That is super important.
And it's super important. And it's bank. And a lot of people don't know about this, right? And so, like, people just, I want to be a grunt. I mean, like, yeah, it's cool to be a grunt, if you want to do that for, a few years, and, until your knees give out or your back is gone or whatever. But I mean, you can't do that your whole life. And when you get out, I mean, yes, I hate to say it that, there's no opportunity for grunts, because there is. There's a lot of techno whatever. You have to be able to process things. You have to be able to adapt. You have to be able to. There's a lot of skill sets about being a grunt. Don't get me wrong. I'm not taking anything away from being a grunt. My best friends are grunts. But I think learning how to translate those skills to when you get out is one of the things that you need to learn really quick and know, right? And so, like I said, go to school, give college a try first, please. If you can't, for some reason, afford it, join the military, go to school while you're in the military. Take advantage. Don't, the way I tell people, don't let the military fuck you, you fuck the military. Take advantage of them, man. Take advantage of everything that you can, every single opportunity that you have, take advantage of it, because it's only once in a lifetime, right? Unless you're a career, person. If your goal is to just do your 4 years and get out, there's nothing wrong with doing that, right?
Right, but you use what you can get from it.
Something, get something out of the military, man. That's what I tell people. That's my biggest advice.
Cool. Well, thank you. I appreciate it. So, hey, Andy, you got any last words? Anything that you can think of?
JR, thanks for being on, man.
No problem. Thanks you guys for having me. I appreciate it.
Yeah, we may, like I've said to other people that have been on the podcast, we may bring you back on because there's so much stuff.
Oh, there's. I mean, we could talk for days, man. Probably. Yeah. That's one of the things. I think that's one thing about us vets, man. I've been known as a what do they call them? Chatty Cathy now these days.
Yeah.
I like to talk, man. I got stories. I've got we all got stories, right? And we all learn from each other, man.
Yeah, no, exactly.
It's connect. It's reach out and make those network with your vets. I think that's just, I don't want to take up most of your time, but that's what helped me get to where I'm at now with the company that I'm with. I went through the whole. I just my veteran connections, man. To be honest with you, I saw this post on LinkedIn. They were looking for veteran apprentices, and they're like, reach out to such and such. I sent a connection with all. I always add a note when I just don't send blank connection invites, right? I always add a note and be like, hey, I'm such and such person. I saw a post about this opportunity. I'd like to learn more. And they're like, yeah, hey, cool. How you doing? And he was like, yeah, I'm a vet too. I did 22 years in the Army. I'm a recruiter, blah, blah. How can I help you? And I was like, hey, I'm really interested. This is my background. This is what I did. This is where I'm at. This is what I want to do. What can you help me with? Right.
Sure.
And so, yeah, he guided me, man. He looked at my resume like 3 or 4 times, kicked it back to me. He's like, hey, this sucks. Work on it. This is what you need to do. I updated him. I think I did my updates like 3 or 4 times to my resume before he accepted it, before you forward it to the next, the next person to kind of review it. That's what got me where I'm at now. And I thank that person each and every single day. I was like, hey man, how you doing? I'll check in on him like, hey, I'm doing great. I'm in such and such projects. The company I work for, we're a consulting company, right? And so I've been at 3 different clients, major clients. I'm talking about like, Seattle is known for what, like the biggest company in Seattle, right? Where like every single person uses a PC will have this company on there somehow, some way, right? And so that's where I'm currently at, and that's what I'm doing. And so it's like, networking, man. Work with your vets.
Cool. Well, I appreciate it. So anybody that's listening to the episode, I encourage you to take notes, because, as with all the episodes, there's a lot of information that are getting out of this, and bringing on somebody for a story, their story is important. So there's a lot of information out there. So just like JR said, it's really about, the vets, we like to talk, we like to tell stories, and we like to say a lot. So I'm hoping that you guys can get a lot out of this episode and all the other episodes. So thank you again, JR. I really do appreciate you jumping on the episode, and we'll have to do this again. So
no problem. I'll be glad to anytime.
Yeah. So thanks everybody for listening in, and make sure to like and subscribe, and also visit the sponsor BattleBox. So thank you again. Have a great day.